Hi, it's Nora. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about being stuck in a rut and 10 steps for breaking out. I've mentioned before how the idea for this channel grew out of a dissatisfaction with my life. I've been feeling like that for a long time, but I've just sort of been trudging on, not really paying it much attention until about a year or so ago I decided that I couldn't just keep going on like this. I knew that there were things that I needed to change in my life, but I couldn't really figure out what they were. So I decided that I was going to try and actually put words to it. I opened up an empty Word document and I just started typing, just not allowing myself to think about what I was writing or edit or second guess or anything like that. What came out at the end was a sort of mission statement, which I talked about in my intro video. It's a mission statement both for this channel, and that's where my idea for this channel started, and also a sort of mission statement for my life. That's how I figured out that I was stuck in a rut. And I told myself before that I needed to, change my life or improve myself or improve my life. But then a week would go by and a month would go by and nothing had changed, and I was still stuck in the exact same place. The thing that I've found about being stuck in a rut is that as much as we can hate it and want to change it, we can also get comfortable in it. It's familiar, it's safe. It takes a lot less effort to just stay in this safe place than it does to break out of it. So we just end up going on as we normally do. It's human. The most difficult part of breaking out of a rut, at least in my opinion, is that you have to prepare yourself for feeling at least a little bit uncomfortable. Sometimes a lot uncomfortable. I think I've finally reached a place where I'm okay with that, and I'm ready to take the leap and just stop overthinking it. This channel is me documenting that journey and taking you along with me. So on that note, here are 10 steps towards breaking yourself out of a rut. First, you need to recognize that you're in a rut. I know, it sounds super basic, but it's actually really important. I was going on with my boring old routine for ages before I even figured out what was wrong. I kept thinking that there was one specific thing that I had to change. I had to move to a new city, start a new job, get my own apartment. And then all of these things sort of slotted into place, and I still wasn't happy. I started thinking that maybe I was the problem. Maybe I just had too high expectations. Maybe I was just a person who could never be happy with what I have. But more and more, I started to realize that I had fitted myself neatly into this pre-printed mold of what a life should be like, or what I thought a life should be like. You wake up, you work your 9 to 5, you make small talk with your colleagues over a Swedish fika, and you go home and repeat everything the next day. It can be hard to notice yourself stagnating when you're just trudging along in the routine of your everyday life. But it's true what they say. The first step towards change is to realize that there's a problem. And at this stage, it is so important to be brutally honest with yourself. Because sometimes you're going to have to acknowledge that the thing that looks perfect on paper just isn't working for you. That the place you imagined yourself living just doesn't feel like home. Or that the stable and respectable job that most people would find endlessly rewarding just doesn't fulfill you in the way you thought it would. The thing is, there's no one size fits all when it comes to life. It seems so obvious, but it's something a lot of us tend to forget. We keep trying to fit into this perfect example of what a normal life should be like, and we think that if we're doing all the things that society says we should do, and we have all the things that society says we should have, then we'll be happy. We've checked all the boxes, we've done all the right things, but it doesn't work like that. Some of us love the structure and stability of a 9 to 5 job, some of us feel strangled by it. Some of us need to have an apartment or a house to set down roots, and some of us feel claustrophobic at the thought of staying in one place for too long. There's no right or wrong way, it's just different ways of living. So if you're waking up on Monday and you're already counting down the days until the weekend, if you're pushing through each day just waiting for it to be over, then maybe it's time for a change. And please don't do what I did. Don't convince yourself that this is just how it's supposed to be, that this is what being an adult is like. Because I honestly believe that life is supposed to be more than that. And if you're watching this video, then it's because you believe that too. Now you need to figure out what needs to change. While you can be stuck in a rut in all aspects of life, this doesn't have to be the case. It can just be confined to one aspect, like your work, or your relationship, or your social life. In order to tackle the problem, you need to figure out exactly what areas you're unhappy with and what needs to change. This isn't always as easy as it sounds. Because the different aspects of our lives are so intertwined, just having a problem in one area can just bleed into everything else and make the problem seem bigger than it actually is. If you're not exactly sure where the problem lies, ask yourself this. What makes you want to crawl back under the covers in the morning to avoid facing the day? Is it the thought of another dreary day at a job that doesn't fulfill you? Is it the thought of another long family dinner making small talk while ignoring all the problems bubbling underneath the surface? Or maybe it's the idea of another lonely night eating junk food on the sofa with Netflix playing in the background while you're trawling through the dregs of Tinder. Whatever it is, it's important to identify the problem. Denial will keep you stagnant, and in the end will only hurt you. So it's important to be brutally honest with yourself about where the problem lies. And try to put words to it too. Usually we know in our hearts where the problem lies, but we don't want to put words to it because it makes it too real. If you honestly want to change, then it's time to do just that. And try to avoid patching up a problem you have in one aspect of your life with something good going on in another. When I started this journey, I felt like I was in a rut in every possible way, and some of that has since improved, especially socially. But I think it's important to not just find happiness in one aspect of your life and then settle for a basic level of discontent in other areas. Partly because I don't think you should ever settle for being unhappy in any aspect of your life, and partly also because of what I talked about before. If you're unhappy in one area, then that can bleed out into other aspects of your life. That's why it's so important to start by figuring out what needs to change, so that when you start making improvements in one aspect of your life, you'll know what you still have left to do. This is a continuous process, and if you want to improve your life, you need to keep pushing forward. Next, you need to let go of your excuses. I don't know about you, but I finally reached a stage where I'm so fed up with myself and my same old tired excuses. The truth is, I'm not a powerless puppet with arms and limbs flailing about at the whims of a cruel world or fate or whatever. And neither are you. We make so many excuses for not changing our lives. We don't have the time, we don't have the money, we have a good relationship or job or whatever, and we should just be happy with what we have. Why mess with something that works, right? Wrong. It's not working. If it was, you wouldn't be feeling this way. Beneath all of this is just one common denominator, and that's fear. Yes, of course I realize that sometimes there are factors outside of your control that prevent you from being able to do the things you want. Sometimes life kicks you in the teeth and leaves you scrambling to pick up the pieces. But a lot of the time, the only thing standing in your way is, well, you. I've spent such a long time letting myself be paralyzed by fear. Fear of failing, of looking dumb, of giving it my best and not being good enough. I've made every possible excuse, and now I've run out of them. Or actually, I've started to force myself to call myself out on them. I do have the time, I just don't use it to do the things that are important. I do have the opportunities, I just close my eyes to them. I do have the support of the people I love, I just choose not to reach out for it. So that's my advice to you. Call yourself out on your excuses. If you find yourself bemoaning that you don't have the time to pursue your passion or your hobbies, remind yourself of all the hours you spent watching cat videos on YouTube. And this isn't meant to be shaming anyone, by the way. I've done all of these things myself. If I took all the hours that I spend on YouTube and put them towards being a productive human being, I would probably not need to be making this video. So don't beat yourself up about it, because that can backfire and just make you avoid the issue. Just acknowledge that you're human, and not always making the best decisions sort of comes with the package. But try to be honest about it, because if you're not calling yourself out on your BS, chances are no one else will either. And honestly, your excuses aren't getting you anywhere, so stop clinging to them. The next step is to allow yourself to want more. In a world where we're constantly inundated with media coverage of misery, it's easy to feel guilty for wanting something more. You might look at your life and think that on paper, it's not a bad life. It might even be a really good one. This is definitely something that I've struggled a lot with in the past, but whenever these feelings crop up, I try to tell myself one thing. You don't need to justify your unhappiness. You don't need a reason to be unhappy. You don't need a major life tragedy to justify your feelings. You can be unhappy with a life that others would dream of having, and that's okay. No one should have to justify their feelings. And you know what? It's possible to be unhappy with where you are while still being grateful for what you have. Now you need to stop thinking about what ifs. You can spend the rest of your life ruminating over all the chances you've blown, all the mistakes you've made, all the opportunities you've missed and the experiences you haven't had. But where will it get you? Eventually, you'll just start kicking yourself over all the time you wasted kicking yourself for past mistakes. So let go of the what ifs. They're only holding you back. You can't change the past. You've probably heard that a million times before, but it bears repeating. You can't change the past. But life isn't over until it's over. So learn from your mistakes and make a change. Don't make this another moment you're going to end up regretting. You can start by making changes to your routine. Wake up, work, eat, sleep, repeat. Does this pattern sound familiar? Most of us tend to spend our days in a very similar, predictable way. We might have been following the same routine for years. If you want to break yourself out of a rut, you need to start making changes. And it doesn't have to be anything drastic. Baby steps still move you forward. So you can go as big or as small as you want. Instead of going straight home after work, take a different route or make plans to meet up with a friend. Strike up a random conversation with someone. Sing in the shower in the morning, as loudly and as badly as you want. Squash your inner perfectionist. I can't tell you how many times I've stopped myself from doing something because if I can't do it perfectly, then I might as well not do it at all. That is a terrible way of thinking. Stop trying to make everything perfect or you'll never finish anything. Allow yourself to be happy that you finished a project and move on to the next one. If you notice things later that you could have done differently or better, that's great. It means you've learned something. It means you've grown. That inner perfectionist is actually a saboteur in disguise. And the sooner you realize that, the sooner you can shut it up and start making progress. Hi! So, this is future Nora. I'm currently editing this video and I've basically just spent a few hours on that and I have hated everything. And I've actually just been sitting here contemplating just deleting the whole thing and starting over. And mind you, this took like 5 hours to film because I'm too much of a perfectionist and I hated every take that I did and I had to just redo them again and again and eventually settle on a take that I wasn't even really happy with just to get it done. And now I'm putting it together and I realize that I sound like a soulless automaton. I've actually just been sitting here contemplating deleting the whole thing because it's just painful to rewatch and the thought of putting it online is even more painful. So that voice in the back of my head has just been going, you cannot possibly let anyone see this. And then I rewatched what I had done so far, what I'd edited so far, and I got to this part and I thought, God, I am just the biggest hypocrite in the world if I delete this now and I give up before I've even started. This is my second video and obviously it's going to be unpolished, obviously it's not going to be perfect, but if I don't allow myself to be imperfect in the beginning, and God, we're always imperfect, but if I don't allow myself to get past that hurdle of allowing the beginning to be bad and rough and just unpolished, then I'm never going to get to the next stage. I'm never going to evolve. And I'm just going to keep being stuck in this place where I don't do anything to achieve my goals because I can't do it perfectly. And that's just a toxic way of thinking. So, as much as it pains me, I'm going to publish this anyway, even though it's painful to watch, and even though I'm not necessarily happy with it. I'm going to accept that this is the beginning, and I'm just going to have to learn as I go, as we all do, I guess. So yeah, hopefully time will improve this. Definitely squash your inner pessimist. Just like the perfectionist, your inner pessimist is going to do everything in its power to sabotage your goals and dreams. I've wanted to start this YouTube channel for years now, but that evil little voice in the back of my head has kept holding me back. I call it the "you can't do it" voice. You know the one, it sounds something like this. Don't be stupid. Who'd want to watch your awkward flailing on camera? What, you think you're gonna be some kind of a YouTuber now? What are you even going to talk about? Get a grip. You're going to embarrass yourself. Publicly. On the internet. Yeah, the "you can't do it" voice is mean. But I finally decided to just tell it to shut up. Now, that doesn't mean that it's been permanently snuffed out under a newfound wave of bravery. It's still there, nattering on in the background, constantly. I'm just choosing to tune it out. I encourage you to do the same. Try something new. The changes you want to make may seem huge, insurmountable, or you might not know exactly what they are. It's easy to get overwhelmed and give up before you even start. If this sounds familiar, take a breath. You don't need to do everything at once. In fact, you can't. No one would dream to try climbing Mount Everest without the proper tools or training as their first venture into mountain climbing, unless they were insane. Instead, start small. Try one new thing. Tired of your old routine? Next time you go to a coffee shop, try ordering something you've never tried before. Always wanted to learn how to paint? Buy some basic art supplies and give it a shot. Maybe consider taking a class or watching a YouTube tutorial. We live in a time where you don't even have to leave your home to learn something new. Also a time where you can't really leave your home. So, there's that. Are you unhappy with your work? Don't be afraid to imagine other opportunities and think of what other things you might enjoy doing. If you feel like you don't have the required skills, then try and think of ways that you might acquire them. It's easy for our mind to think of problems. Finding solutions is a lot harder. Try to set a challenge to yourself to try one new thing. Just one thing that puts you slightly out of your comfort zone and gets you a bit closer to that goal that you set for yourself. If it helps, here are a few goals I've set for myself. 1. Starting this YouTube channel. 2. I've taken ice skating classes. 3. I started an online university course in the spring. I ended up not finishing it because of life and other excuses, but that's okay. It's important to know and accept that everything you try isn't going to work out, because that inner pessimist is going to try to tell you, see, I told you it wasn't going to work out. Be kinder to yourself. I'm going to make an entire video about how to be kinder to yourself, but to start off, try to find a way of de-stressing that works for you, whether that's taking a bubble bath, reading a book, or going on a hike. Accept that change takes time, and it's okay if you stumble or have a few setbacks on the way there. As long as you recognize it and you set yourself back on the same path, you're still winning. So go easy on yourself. You don't have to get it right on the first or second or third try. You don't have to get it right at all. This isn't about getting it right. It's about figuring it out as you go along. Figuring out what you need, what you like, what brings you joy. That's never going to be a straight path, and that's okay. It's not supposed to be. And please, 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 stop calling yourself stupid. Stop calling yourself a coward or an idiot or all the other mean things you say to yourself inside your head. Just stop. That inner voice is vicious. Trust me, I know. It's been screaming at me the whole time I've been planning this channel. The whole time I've been planning to change my life. Every time I try something new. Shutting it down is an active choice that I have to make constantly, every day. Does it get easier? I'll let you know. For now, I'm just deciding to not let it win. That's all I have for you today. I'll see you next time.